What's up, everyone? This is Quest for Tears. I'm going to do a tier list for Resident Evil games. All right, as I said, I'm going to be doing a tier list for Resident Evil games. This is a sort of fits in with the Halloween theme. They're kind of all horror games, and this is a franchise that I have loved for many, many years. And I will explain a little bit more when I get to certain games, but I think this is going to be a fun list for me at least. So buckle up and let's get into it. All right, well, let's start right off the bat with the original classic Resident Evil game. This was released on the PlayStation, and a little story. This is the game that I bought a PlayStation for. I remember I think I had sold some of my consoles or something like a Sega Genesis and some games so I could earn enough money to get a PlayStation and get Resident Evil when it came out. I just thought this game looked amazing when it was released. So, original Resident Evil, where does it stand? Graphically, it's garbage at this point in time, but are we ranking it by that? I don't know. Considering it kicked off the whole thing, it really kind of kicked off the whole horror game genre. I'm not sure I'm willing to give this an S, but the game was great. The game has so many quotable lines too. It's so campy, so cheesy, and that's one of the things that I love about the Resident Evil series. Because to be honest, I'm not a big horror movie fan or anything like that, or horror game fan. I've tried to play other games. I don't get into them as much. But okay, I'm delaying on this. I'm going to put it at A. I believe that honors it, but I know that I enjoyed other ones more than it. So let's go there to begin with. I might even move it to B. And I might move it to B because we have Resident Evil 2, the next game released. Now, Resident Evil 2, a lot of people would argue is better than the first one, and I think I would be within that camp to say that it's better. All these old PlayStation games, because like I know coming up ahead we're gonna have remakes of these, and the remakes really make these games, I believe, just a bit better. There's always something to be said for the nostalgia and what they meant to you at the time. Resident Evil 2, I'm going to also give it an A. I'm starting to feel like I should move the original down to a B. In fact, I think I will, because I think Resident Evil 2 is just a little bit better. So sadly, I'm already bumping things. But let's get into Resident Evil 3 then, the next release, Nemesis. My fondness of this game comes from being chased by Nemesis. I thought that was just constantly intense. It freaked me out when I originally played it. And because of that, I'm also going to put this as an A, I think. I don't think as many people like this game, and I certainly haven't played it. You know what? I haven't played it as much as like Resident Evil 2. It's like, how do I rank these things really? I'm going to say that's probably a B, because I didn't play it as much, but I'll tell you what, the memory of it though, it stands out drastically in my mind. So Resident Evil Code Veronica X, this was released on the Sega Saturn, was it? Or Dreamcast. This was a Dreamcast game, I believe. I haven't played it a ton. As of yet, it has not been remade or re-released very much as far as I know. So I do think they're possibly in talks of remaking it, which would be fun. I will say I don't remember a ton of it. I do like Claire Redfield, but the one thing that stood out in this game to me was its difficulty. I actually got to the end of the game and I couldn't beat the game because I didn't have enough ammo or anything. I used too much ammo throughout the game that I got to the final boss, and I literally could not beat the final boss. I mean, if I sat there and tried to fight it with a knife for all eternity or something, maybe. But that is my main memory on this game. I love the intro of it and everything. It had the coolest intro. But, I think because of my frustration with it, I actually had to watch my brother beat the game because I couldn't beat it. I pre-warned him as he was going through the game. I said, save your ammo. Don't be very conservative, run away from things. So when I play Resident Evil games, I tend to fight and kill everything I come across. That's just how I am. I just want to wipe it out. I just want to take it out. I've been able to do that with Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 up to this point, but Code Veronica, you have to run from stuff. You just have to run past it because you need to conserve the ammo. That's what I found. So because of that, I'm going to put it to a C. I still enjoyed the game, but it flopped for me at the end. Resident Evil. I don't really understand what's the difference here. Was this a remake of... Because I see we have Resident Evil 0 down there. I don't remember what this was. Is this the remake that came years later? Let me look at the rest of what's on this list. I think this was the remake or HD remaster of the first Resident Evil. I think that's what this is. So let's go with that. The HD remake of Resident Evil. Definitely improved upon the original as far as the controls and stuff. Back when the games were released, the tank controls were fine and great, but they definitely got dated and aged over time. So this one updated that, gave it some new controls and stuff. You could still do the tank controls. The graphics got better. Overall, just a better game in general as a remake. See, this is the tricky spot now because it is sort of an upgrade. So do I downgrade all the originals to put these at the top? I don't know. I'm going to put this still. I'm just going to match it with B. Just leave it there for now. Resident Evil 0 was released later. I don't know. What was this on? Was this GameCube or something? I'm trying to remember all these. I'm not sure. So I guess Resident Evil 0. I feel like there was a remake of it as well, but I don't see that on here. I don't know. Let's just go with what I remember. Resident Evil 0. I would probably put a C. I don't remember it being too memorable, hence me not remembering it. And it didn't really have any of the mainline characters. Rebecca Chambers was from, I think, Resident Evil 1, or at least had a small part in it, but she wasn't like a favorite character or anything. So I'm just going to put that there. Put it as C. And then we move on to... So this is tough because I see they have a couple of remakes. This list doesn't have the most current and newest things. So we have Resident Evil 4. I don't see the Resident Evil 4 remake on this list. So I'm going to kind of combine the two together. Resident Evil 4 is probably my most purchased Resident Evil game. I've probably purchased this game 5 or 6 times over the course of its life on different consoles and remakes and whatever. I think this originally came out on GameCube, if I'm remembering correctly. I've bought it on the Wii. I'm sure I bought it on like PlayStation, maybe PlayStation 4 or something like that. I've bought it on the computer. I bought the remake of it. Resident Evil 4 is it. A lot of people don't even realize this, but the over-the-shoulder camera view for third-person games, third-person shooters, everything. If I remember correctly, Resident Evil 4 was the first game that did that. They were the first game to adopt that and create that, and it's been used ever since. If they weren't the first, they were nearly the first. I don't remember anybody else doing it. It was revolutionary at the time. It totally updated the tank controls for the game, and it was the first game in 3D. So Resident Evil 4 was a classic. I played it so many times. Loved this game. That is clearly S tier. And again, I'm combining the remake and the original, both S tier. Great Resident Evil game. Now we're going to get into a little bit more controversial stuff because we have Resident Evil 5. A lot of people really didn't like Resident Evil 5 that much, but I actually loved Resident Evil 5. I played through it so many times. It was one of the first games I ever got a platinum trophy in. Might have even been the first game, or achievements, 100% achievements in it, however you want to say it. So that I played it on PlayStation 4, which is what I believe it was released on. Maybe it was PlayStation 3. I can't even remember. I feel like it was 4. But one big thing at Chris Redfield, the game was over the top, campy. All of these games are, and I love it. You've got Chris Redfield punching a rock at the end and stuff. Just crazy stuff. But what I really loved was the ability to play co-op for the first time throughout the whole game. And so not only did I play the game by myself, I played through it with my brother. I believe I even started playing through it with my wife. I don't know that we finished it. I can't remember that much, but this was a great game to me. I loved Resident Evil 5, and that is also an S tier for me. And I believe that's going to be controversial for some of you, but I loved it. Resident Evil Revelations, that was, what was that released on? I can't remember, but I did play it. It was sort of a more of a side game. Was it Wii? I don't even remember. It was an offshoot game. I can't remember who the star of it was. Was it Jill Valentine? I'm not sure. Not overly memorable to me, but I do know I enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed it more than like Code Veronica and Resident Evil 0. So I'm going to put it at a B. I can't talk too much because I think I only played it once or twice. So I don't really remember. But then we have what I probably consider the most controversial Resident Evil game, and that's Resident Evil 6, because people thought it was terrible. I don't know why. It was one of the highest grossing, highest selling Resident Evil games at the time, but yet people still hated it. I think it still might be one of the highest selling Resident Evil games, but it had multiple storylines, like it basically was a culmination of all things Resident Evil to that point. It had all the major players, Chris Redfield, Leon Kennedy, Ada Wong was in it. It had, what was her name? Sherry. She was, I believe, part of Resident Evil 2 at the storyline. I feel like I'm forgetting stuff. But this game, people loved to hate it. It also had the co-op. It still had the ability to play through the game together. And I believe I did play through it with my brother as well. And I loved this game. I love the culmination, the different styles that it had. Each character had kind of a different style, a different storyline, a different theme. And that was the other thing. The storylines were like separate storylines and they all converged together. It was like you got little snippets of storylines here and there from each different perspective. So you may be surprised or not surprised by how I'm talking about it, but this is S tier. Resident Evil was just knocking it out of the park with 4, 5, and 6 to me. Each one was a step up from the rest. Resident Evil 6 is my all-time favorite Resident Evil game. And many people will vastly disagree with me on that. And I'm fine with that. I've argued to death with people over what the Resident Evil series is. It's always been a campy series. Look, all these games we've just gone through, super campy, very campy games. It's like the campy B-style horror. And people wanted it to be real horror and they thought this was too campy and whatever. And I was like, that's always what Resident Evil has been. But before I get into the transition there, we've got Resident Evil Revelations 2. I believe this had Claire Redfield as the main person. I'm going to put that at a B. It's like the first one. I played it. I know I enjoyed it. I just don't remember it that much. So that's where that will go. Then we have Resident Evil 7. This comes hot off the controversy of Resident Evil 6. They decided to go a completely different direction with this game. They decided to go full-blown horror and change the perspective to first person. All Resident Evil games to this point had been third person perspective, and largely abandon the campiness, the general lore, and it's still in there. But I'm going to be honest, I didn't play this game. I was very upset in the direction that they took with the Resident Evil series. I played the demo. I gave it a chance when they released the demo, and I hated it. I hated the demo enough that I never played this, and at the time never bought it. It was like the end of Resident Evil to me. Because I'm not going to say I never played it. I did play the demo, and I got a taste of what the game is going to be like. I was very mad at this game. And people are going to be mad if I put it as an F, but I'm going to put it as an F because it was a failure to me in the Resident Evil franchise. I don't like it. I will say I did eventually buy it just to complete my collection on Steam. I think I paid $5 for it, or maybe $10 on some kind of discount thing for the deluxe edition or whatever it is. I don't know if I'll ever go and play it. We'll see. If I do play it, I'll probably play it with like cheat codes or something just to buzz through the game and see what it's like, because I just not a fan. But they did then go back to the old style and remade Resident Evil 2. And I believe Resident Evil 2 made far more money than Resident Evil 7 did, which to me shows that people want the old third-person Resident Evil and the campiness and the everything. Resident Evil 2 was a great update to an old game. I have Resident Evil 2 as A. I'm actually going to probably leave this here because I still love 4, 5, and 6 the most. But this was an excellent upgrade to Resident Evil 2. And same here, we got Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Now, I had Nemesis down here as a B. I am going to put this also as an A because, again, it was an excellent upgrade. And I enjoyed it. I love seeing these old ones remade in modern graphics and, you know, a couple new twists to them. So that makes me wonder if I should just drop the old ones down to the B level, because honestly, am I ever going to go back and play the original Resident Evil 2? Probably not. So I think I'm going to keep the originals at the B level. It's hard because I want to honor the series and where it started, but they've really improved over time. So that's going to go there. I will move the remaster of Resident Evil up to an A tier because it does improve on the original game. The original game had some fun stuff, though. That was the most campy of all of them. The classic line, I can't remember which the guy's name was, but he pulls out a gun and he's like, "I've got this." I don't know. For some reason, that's always got me and my brother. But I'm going to revise it to this right now. And then we have Resident Evil Village. As with 8, 7, this is the 8th game, and I've heard better things about it, and it might be a little bit more of a shift into the campiness a little bit of the previous games. But in general, I didn't play it. I didn't play it because I hated Resident Evil 7 and the direction it took so much that I didn't even want to play this. And this one, I think, actually stars Chris Redfield, so that was a slight bonus. I did buy it eventually, again, to complete my collection. I would almost rather try playing a Village rather than Resident Evil 7, just because Chris Redfield's in it. But I'm going to have to put it into never played for right now. Now we got Resident Evil Survivor. I don't remember what this is. I'm just going to take a look and see if I can see some screenshots. Oh, this looks like an on-rails shooter. I vaguely remember playing that. Resident Evil Survivor. Because I barely remember it, I'm going to put it as a D. But I do remember vaguely playing the on-rails shooter. Now, the Game Boy stuff, I didn't play, I don't believe, any Game Boy one. I did play they used to have, kind of before smartphones, they had Windows phones. They were kind of like the modern day smartphone, but they had basically Windows, like a mobile type Windows on it. Some people made games. There was a Resident Evil game on that, and I'm not sure if that's on this list. I'm not seeing anything that reminds me of it, but let's double check what Resident Evil Dead Aim. It doesn't help that I don't remember. This is another on-rails shooter. And as I'm seeing the pictures, again, I vaguely remember playing this. I think I will also throw that as a D. Resident Evil Outbreak is the next one on this list. I believe that was like an online game, if I remember correctly. I don't recall. I don't think I feel like I may have played it, but it's slipping my memory at this point if I did. I'm going to probably have to put both these Outbreak games in the never played. Then we have Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles. Yes, that was another on-rails shooter on the Wii, I believe. And I actually have a fondness of playing through that a few times. I'll put that as a C. It's definitely going to be a step up from these other ones. And Dark Side Chronicles, is that what that is? Dark Side Chronicles, which I believe is just another on-rails shooter upgrade. Yeah, I feel like I had like a set that had both of them. I'll put it right here next to Umbrella Chronicles. Resident Evil, The Mercenaries 3D. Mercenaries was sort of a offshoot, I believe, of this was a Nintendo 3DS. I believe they eventually brought it somewhere else. I think I briefly played it here. I think you just kind of played stages or something. I don't know if this was added in one of the other games. I vaguely remember it, but I don't think I enjoyed it that much. I'm going to put that as a D. Operation Raccoon City was an online game. It's going to be a D. It was okay. I played it a couple times. It really wasn't that great, if I'm being honest. Maybe it's an F. That might be a fail. That wasn't that great. Umbrella Corps. That was another online one. Barely played it. Better than the other. I'm going to put that. I'll put that there. I don't have a ton to say about it. All these last ones are basically online versions. Resistance, I really wanted to try playing. I just didn't have anybody to play it with. So Resistance and Reverse, they're both just online versions of, I believe, some of these remakes and things, or they came alongside them, but I never got a chance to play them. I'm really the main Resident Evil fan of any people I know, my friend groups and things, so couldn't really get people to want to play those, and I don't think they were that great anyways. They probably wouldn't rank too high, but that's it. That's my list. I've got 3 up top. I don't think I'm going to change. I've already made some adjustments as we've gone on. I think I'm happy with where this is. Yeah. Anyways, that's my list. Would love to hear what you guys think. I'd love to know your list as well, or at least tell me your top Resident Evil games. What's your S tier for Resident Evil? Tell me that at the very least. But I will have a link as usual in the description to take this test on your own, this tier list. And yeah, so until next time, subscribe, like my video, comment, tell me some more ideas on what you'd like to see me do some tier lists on, and that's about it. So I will see you on the next Quest for Tears.